Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Welcome to Merryn Talks Your Money, the personal finance edition of Merryn Talks Money. In these bonus podcasts, we talk about the best strategies for making the most of your money. I'm Merryn Somerset Webb. So here we are, second week of September, back to school season for many of you listeners. So we thought that we would focus this week's personal finance episode on useful tips for your first year university students, or indeed directly for first year university students. This is exciting times starting university, but it also comes with big financial responsibilities that most young people will be taking on for the very first time. There are tuition fees, there are textbooks, there's accommodation, there's food, there's beer. Managing your money is very difficult. And doing it right can make a huge difference to the long-term experience. Now, a lot of students go right into this without any real clear plan about how they're going to manage their money. That means stress. It could even mean debt. And we all know about student overdrafts, right? So you've got to prepare and you've got to do it ahead of time. So to help us talk about the key things that you've got to look at in advance, we have invited Marc Shoffman, who's an award-winning journalist who's written for The Times, The Daily Telegraph, also for Money Week, close to my heart, and recently published a piece in The Independent called How to Budget and Manage Your Money as a Student. Marc, welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, possibly the most important bit at the beginning of this is a conversation between parents and students that we're not going to dwell on this week, because we have done a whole personal finance episode on it previously, the link for which is in the show notes. And that is about whether, if you can afford it, you should take on your kids' fees, and whether you should pay them or give them extra pocket money towards maintenance, etc., so they don't leave with debt. That is a big conversation. We've had it before, and the conclusion, I'm afraid, is, well, I don't know, it depends. But do go and listen to it, because I do think it's useful. But that out of the way, the next most important thing is to think about, if you are taking out the loans, how much you should take, how much you can get, and then how much you should actually take. And that depends partially on where you live, doesn't it, Marc?
Yes, indeed. So there's a few different factors. Where you live, I guess, the university you're going to and the course, and whether you're studying full or part-time. There's two different loans. So first of all, you're going to have your tuition loan. This is going to cover your tuition fees, which is the course costs. The bad news, if you're starting a new year as a existing student or a first-time student, is they've gone up this September by £285 to a maximum of £9,535 a year. And I think that's split into 3 terms. So you've got to factor in that cost, that budget. So that's £28,605 to budget over the next 3 years at least. The good news is you can get a tuition fee loan to cover all of that, and that money goes directly to the university.
Yeah, you apply for that, it gets approved, it goes straight to the university. You don't touch that money, you don't have anything to do with it, except for that you owe it back.
Correct. Yes. And then the other, I guess, bigger cost is going to be living costs. You've got to pay your rent. You may have shopping, books, going out. All those cheap shots have to be paid for. So you can get, well, you shouldn't really be spending on maintenance loan on this, but on alcohol necessarily, but you can get a maintenance loan to cover your living costs at university. Now, unlike the tuition fee loan, the maintenance loan is means tested. So it will depend on the household income of the parents. And also it depends where you're living, and if you're in London or outside London. So the maximum you can get if you're living with your parents is up to £8,877. But if you're living away from your parents outside of London, it's up to £10,544. Mm-hmm. Or in London, it's up to £13,762. But that will start dropping depending on the household income of your parents.
What income is that where it starts falling?
Once a household has £25,000 or more, it starts falling. So the big number is at £58,349. It starts dropping to £3,907 if you're living at home, £5,522 if you're away from home outside London, and £8,655 if you're away from home in London.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? And it assumes, looking at household income, it assumes that you're not really an adult and you're almost definitely supported by your parents, which, of course, some people at 18 or 19 may no longer have that relationship with their parents. But I guess that's another podcast. Okay, so you apply for the money. Is it a good idea to take all of it, to take the maximum that you are entitled to? I mean, we can look at that and we can say, well, in the main, probably most kids are going to need the maximum they're entitled to. But there may also be other cases where perhaps you're working, or perhaps your grandparents are helping support you, perhaps your parents are helping, where maybe you don't necessarily need all of it, in which case, I mean, my guess would be that you shouldn't take it, because why would you take out unnecessary debt? Other people might say, take it all and invest in Bitcoin.
Well, yes, you do have to pay it back. So that's something to consider. But you only have to pay it back once you earn above a certain threshold, which is over £25,000 nowadays. But I mean, Save the Student has some interesting data. It says that the sort of student living costs are £1,104 a month. So even if you do take the full maintenance and as also tuition fee loan, is not going to cover everything you need to pay for anyway. So you are probably going to need to find some extra income elsewhere.
Now, in order to get your maintenance loan, for the money to arrive, you need to designate a bank account for it to be paid into. And one of the biggest questions, and maybe you say it isn't the most important one, but to students in their first year, it always seems like the most important one. How do I choose a bank account? Because obviously most kids will have a bank account, but if you open a specific student bank account, you get student perks. So in the main, you'll get some kind of voucher or cashback or something, and you'll also get a relatively large fee-free overdraft, right?
Yes. So I remember when I was young, my parents had opened an old Santander or Abbey National account for me. But by the time I got to university, there was a whole new world of bank accounts to discover, full of discount rail cards and I guess takeaway vouchers. And nowadays it's cash back, it's discounts on streaming platforms. But it's worth shopping around for the best deals. Have a look on comparison websites. I think Lloyds Bank currently is offering £100 cash back and 6 months of delivery plus, because you've got to eat, I guess, when you're at university. Many will also offer overdrafts, which will be useful for students, but I guess it's a useful way to learn about money as well, because you don't want to fall too far into that overdraft. You want to make sure that your expenses aren't too much, that you're going into that too much, and that you're not going too far into that overdraft, so you end up paying interest for unauthorized withdrawals and spending.
Yeah, I mean, it always seems to me that having a big overdraft is important. A big free overdraft facility is really important, because you might end up using it. But of course, the key thing is you don't want to use it. You don't want to use it, but it should be there. And so maybe it is one of the main criteria for looking for a bank account. And if you look through the best buys at the moment, you can get 0% overdraft up to £500 a month, 1 to 6, £1,000 7 to 9, up to £1,500 from 10 to 12, and then up to £2,000 in year 4 to 6. So not quite as big as I thought. But nonetheless, you have to kind of keep qualifying for it, I guess, by sticking with the account and having your maintenance loan paid into it. And then there's the cash. So as you say, quite a few of them are offering £100 in cash. And then Santander is offering the rail card.
Yes.
Which seems like a pretty good one to get.
Definitely, if you're living away from home, it's going to be the most useful perk of a student account, because it makes travel a lot cheaper, and we all know how much rail fares are.
Yeah. When I was looking at this, I was thinking, well, would I prefer to have a rail card over a 3 or 4 year period, or £100 up front, which seems to be basically what you're choosing between with these accounts? And I still think that I would go for the rail card, because £100, you can drop that in the pub in 5 minutes and forget you ever had it. But a rail card every year for 4 years seems like something worth having, something longer term.
Yeah. I guess it depends how much you want to go home and see your parents as well.
Fair.
Okay, I guess there's washing to do. Yeah.
There's always washing to do, and parents will do it for free, or I will. I'll do it for free. And then there is the vouchers. And so quite a lot of the accounts at the moment are offering vouchers, delivery vouchers, or Just Eat vouchers. And I was looking at that and thinking, I'd be interested in your opinion on this, and just thinking, well, if you look at those, mostly you don't get them in a one-er. So you don't get £100 of vouchers at the beginning. You can just go and, splurge on something. You get them at £10 a month or £15 a month or something like that, which of course means that you're going to spend that 10, but you're almost definitely going to spend more every month, right?
Yeah.
So that feels to me like a negative rather than a positive, because it's just going to encourage you to spend more. It's going to encourage you, if you don't have one already, to set up a Deliveroo or a Just Eat account, and then you know what's going to happen. You're just going to keep using that, and those vouchers will have created a new spending habit for you that maybe you should never have had in the first place. I don't know, just a view. What do you think?
Yeah, no, exactly. And then you're getting into the whole issue of budgeting and potentially running out of money, healthy eating as well. You don't want to just live on takeaways at university. It's important to develop good financial and culinary habits, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move then from student bank accounts. I think we've established what you should be looking for in those. On to how do you budget? What are you budgeting for once you arrive at university, and how are you doing that?
I guess it depends where you're going to live. If you're going to live in a student halls, everything like furniture, is going to be provided. But then if you're in a shared house, you may need to furnish it. You need to think about bedding. And then there's going to be groceries, electronics, food, books. A lot of experts say don't rush. There could be this big rush to buy loads of pots and pans for when you're moving in. But if you're going to go into a shared halls or a shared house and everyone brings pots and pans, you could end up with 10 or 20 pots and pans, and you're not going to cook that much pasta. So it may be worth waiting until your child gets to university and then deciding what goods are needed.
Yeah. And then it's also worth, once you get your student card, and maybe waiting till you get your student card, just presenting it every possible opportunity, right? Because there are discounts all over the place for students. Sometimes I look at them and I think, why? Why do they get literally everything with a discount or for free? But they do. So, you should take that card and you should use it as much as possible and go everywhere looking for a discount, right?
Of course, yeah. So, you get discounts, once you get the student card from a National Union of Students. And you can look on websites such as Uni Days and Student Beans, Save a Student. They all list places where you can get discounted goods and days out. So, it's worth shopping around.
So we've talked about how you should budget, what you should think about spending on, how you should get an account and how to figure out how much money to take, etc. But there's one thing that we haven't looked at, which is how important it is to just keep a little money aside. I mean, I remember from my own student days how exciting it is when that money arrives. It's very hard to make sure that you've got enough put aside should you have an emergency. Your bicycle stolen, for example, which I'm sure happens to a student every 5 minutes. Putting aside an emergency fund, that seems like an important start, right?
Yes, I guess the rule when it comes to managing your finances, when you're earning a salary, is to have 3 to 6 months put aside. For students, obviously, you're not going to be earning any money, or unless you do get a job. So you need to work out what your bills are and the cost of the goods you have, and have money set aside, as you say, for those emergencies and unexpected expenses that you mentioned. But then there are apps that help set money aside and budget. So I think Starling Bank has a budget planner app which helps you set money aside. You can set up your own Excel spreadsheet. Or maybe it's even a good use of ChatGPT, finally, something good that AI can help with.
Yeah. And the only other thing I would say, I don't know what you think about this, but in the main, there's a lot of inertia in bank accounts, right? So we talk a lot about how important it is to look at the perks, to look at the overdrafts, to look at the cash you might get back. But there's also maybe a sense that you should think about the fact that you might have this bank account for 30 years. I actually had my Lloyd student account that then turned into a graduate account. I had that same account for 25 years or something before they irritated me so much I moved. So it's worth thinking about whether that's the kind of institution you ought to have your account with over the very long term as well.
Yeah, I think customer inertia is a big issue, and there may be decent perks to join now, but in 3 years' time, Lloyds Bank may not necessarily be the best bank for you, or Santander. So remember to keep shopping around, look out for cashback deals and extra perks for once you graduate. Because I guess, once you're older, it may not be Just Eat vouchers, it may be savings interest that interests you.
Yeah. And can you swap accounts while you're at university? I mean, let's say you get to the beginning of your second year and you look around and you're like, oh, look at that, there's 200 quid on offer over there. Can you get those deals?
No, you can't.
No, you can't. That's the whole point. No one wants you chopping and changing all over the place and taking 100 quid twice. You're going to only normally get a student account with those perks and benefits in your first year. Right, Marc, is there anything we haven't covered that you think is important?
I guess the only thing we haven't is when you're kind of shopping around for deals, it's not just the discounts, it's looking at apps and kind of Chrome extensions such as Camel and Idolo, which help you track prices. So you make sure you're getting the best deal. Don't always buy new. Things like Vinted, Gumtree, eBay, Facebook Marketplace are great places to buy secondhand goods. There may be old students who've graduated and want to get rid of their old books, and you can get their old notes.
Get their old notes?
But they're not necessarily cheating, but seeing how other people have revised. I wouldn't recommend cheating. Don't cheat.
Okay.
That's a bad thing to end.
No, don't do that. That would be a terrible end to this podcast. Do open a bank account. Do think carefully about how much of a loan you get. Do talk to your parents. If you can make them pay anything up front for you, the less debt you have, the better. Do budget carefully. Do not consider your overdraft to be your emergency account. Do not spend all your loan the second you get it. Freshest week is only the first week. I think that's the main pieces of advice that I have. Any one main piece of advice from you, Marc, before we finish?
I guess just enjoy it.
But not too much.
It'll be your first taste of independence, but not too much, yeah.
Brilliant. Marc, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this week's Merryn Talks Your Money. If you like our show, rate, review and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. This episode was produced by Summer Sadi, production support by Moses Andam. Questions and comments on this show and all our shows, always welcome. Our show email is merrynmoney@bloomberg.net.